Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rundown. I am your host, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left host, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And this is the Rundown.
Hey, stop what you're doing, cause I'm about to ruin the image of me that you're used to. I look money, a king bee making honey, see? Deep state, I hope you're ready for me. Now gather round, I'm the new sheriff in town. All my people rise up and stand your ground. Now drink up all the Diet Coke you got on your shelf. So just let me introduce myself, my name is Trump D. I like my mashed potatoes lumpy. Fake news, oh how I like to punk thee. That little sniper on the slope tin, he took a shot but he missed me. I don't fall, y'all, I'm like the ever ready bunny. Still going strong and spunky. So put on your big boy pants. Come on, let's do the dance.
The Trumpy dance is your chance to do the Trump.
Come on, do the Trumpty Trump. Come on and do the Trumpty Trump. Check me out, y'all. We do the Trumpty Trump. Just watch me do the Trumpty Trump. Yeah. Do you know what I'm doing? We do the Trumpty Trump. Come on, everybody do the Trumpty Trump. It's time to do the Trumpty Trump. Yeah.
How is everybody doing today? We very much appreciate y'all tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and encouraging your friends to do the same. You might notice things are a little bit out of order this morning, or this afternoon, this evening. Dude, it's been a day, folks. It's been a day. But I'm having a good time here. Unfortunately, Mike is not with us today. He may be joining us throughout the program, but if not, that's okay because we're live and I'm here. You're here. We're taking your comments. We're having discussions, whatever y'all want to talk about, other than the news stories that we have already selected. We're going to have a good time talking about it and very much appreciate your comments. Doesn't really matter if you agree with me, disagree with me. We still want to hear from you. Because if you disagree, that gives us an even better opportunity because, well, that gives us a chance to mock you.
Oh, wow. Is that a mockingbird?
Man, is that a mockingbird? Is that a mockingbird?
That's right. We reserve the right to mock you. And not so much that we want to make any enemies, that we want to hurt anybody's feelings. But let's be honest, mocking is fun. At least in particular, it's fun for us or fun for me. Anyway, we're going to have a good time, though. Conversations had by all, but let's go ahead and get into a quick shout out to our sponsors before we get into the program. We're going to start with Hitman Industries. They sell rifle and pistol caliber barrels. They're available at any length for you to purchase. If you've purchased an AR in the last few years, there's a good chance you already have one of their barrels, and I'm sure you love it. So you're going to want to check them out even more. Just go to hitmanindustries.net. Then we've got the California Republican Assembly working to help elect conservatives at all levels of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. Ronald Reagan once referred to CRA as the conscience of the Republican Party. Visit their website at cragop.org. That's cragop.org. If you want to be a part of California's future today, you got to join CRA. And then you've got the best of concealed carry tactical holsters that are available on the market. You're going to find them at hawgholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com because they're helping Americans wear guns. Just go there, check them out, and if you decide you want to buy, make sure you use the discount code The Rundown. All caps, no spaces, one word, just like it is right up there, and you're going to get a discount on us. And then we've got the folks over at uscombatgear.com, the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun. They specialize in group sales. They have a huge selection. They have phenomenal prices, as once again, especially for group sales, and they have the best customer service available on the market. Go there, check them out. That's uscombatgear.com. All right, let's go ahead and get into today's news stories, and we're going to go ahead and start with Ilhan Omar. That's right. We'll call her the congressional Somali pirate. She has the nerve, right? She has the nerve to actually come out and blame the FBI for the failure, and I believe once again the abject failure that has been the case with within Minnesota And the fact that so many of the Somalis, that so many of the people who've been caught up in this $1 billion, or now it's looking like a multi-billion-dollar fraud scheme, uh, happen to be Somalis, the overwhelming majority of them. Um, now, here's what I wanted to do, because I wanted to start because I wanted to give you an idea of how Face the Nation, of how they led into CBS News led into this whole conversation. And then afterwards, I'll play the part where they actually talk about the actual fraud, and you get a chance to hear some of her horrible defense of it.
There are 80,000 people of Somali descent in your state, but the president has been very focused, not just on them, but on you. In this extraordinary cabinet meeting, he said Somalis, quote, come from hell. They complain and they do nothing but bitch. Take a listen.
These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. We don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it. Thank you very much.
That knocking is vehement agreement from his cabinet members there. I just wonder what the reaction is in your district to have that from the highest office in the land.
It's disgusting. It's completely disgusting. These are Americans that he is calling garbage. And we feel like there is an unhealthy obsession that he has on the Somali community, and an unhealthy and creepy obsession that he has with me. I think it is also really important for us to remember that this kind of hateful rhetoric and this level of dehumanizing can lead to dangerous actions by people who listen.
So this was, just for our audience, the Biden-era Justice Department called it the largest COVID fraud scheme in the country. And this was pocketing COVID-era welfare funds, more than $1 billion in taxpayer money that was stolen. It was pretty shocking. Of the 87 people charged, all but 8 are of Somali descent. And that has added to the spotlight being put specifically on your community. Why do you think this fraud was allowed to get so widespread?
Well, I want to say, this also has an impact on Somalis because we are also taxpayers in Minnesota. We also could have benefited from the program and the money that was stolen. And so it's been really frustrating for people to not acknowledge the fact that we're also, as Minnesotans, as taxpayers, really upset and angry about the fraud that has occurred.
Now, you noticed real quick there, 87 people convicted. So we're not charged and convicted. 87, all but 8 were Somalis. And some of them, by the way, are people who she has close contact with. One of the individuals, they owned a restaurant where she hosted her campaign party. People who are known, who are close to her. I'm sure when they do some digging, they're going to find a number of these folks have contributed to her campaign. This is an individual who literally has direct ties with a lot of these folks. And a lot of them, and as was noted in the other piece, a lot of them are citizens. They are citizens now. And because they've been here in the United States now for quite a while. But the problem is that she completely and utterly ignores the overwhelming majority of the folks happen to be Somalis or from Somali background. Now, further in the CBS News piece, and it wasn't really there in the quote, she actually blames the FBI. It says here, Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar said Sunday that any link between allegations of fraud by members of the Somali community and terrorism would be a failure of the FBI amid calls to investigate a series of multi-million-dollar alleged pandemic fraud schemes in Minnesota. During the Biden administration in 2022, federal prosecutors in Minnesota filed charges in what they describe as the largest pandemic fraud in the United States, which revolved around welfare programs that partnered with Minnesota Department of Education and the U.S. Department of Agriculture to distribute meals to children. The Treasury Department said last week that it will investigate whether tax dollars from Minnesota's public assistance programs made their way to the Al Qaeda affiliate Al Shabaab, which is based in Somalia. And House Republicans on the Oversight Committee launched an investigation last week into Democratic Governor Tim Walz's handling of the fraud cases. Omar said on Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan Sunday that she's, quote, pretty confident that the alleged link to terrorism is a false claim, citing prosecutions and sentences that have already taken place. Quote, if there was a linkage in money that they have stolen going to terrorism, then that is a failure of the FBI and our court system in not figuring that out, Omar said. The Minnesota Democrats said the accusations have been around for many years, but she added that if that is the case, if money from the U.S. tax dollars is being sent to help terrorism in Somalia, we want to know. And we want those people prosecuted, Omar said. And we want to make sure that doesn't ever happen again. So, in other words, she's trying to put the crap back in the goose. But the reality is, first of all, the organizations that we're talking about, organizations that at in some cases she has supported them. In some cases, she has verbally supported their rhetoric or echoed their rhetoric. Ilhan Omar is tangentially, I'm not going to say directly, but at the very least tangentially, a supporter of terrorist organizations. She's at least a supporter of terrorist actions, right? She is the person who refuses to condemn a number of things that have happened. You heard her blaming the Israelis for what happened on October 7th, not for the people who actually went in and killed women and children in front of their families. You don't see her claiming any of that. By the way, real quick, our friend over at Mr. Patrick Collins over at the Gun Food says they are having a big year, Christmas sale or end of the year sale, however you want to refer to it. But they got some big sales coming up and they want to let y'all know. So make sure you take a moment if you get a chance. Go ahead and just Google the Gun Food. Check out their website. Once again, good folks, good gentlemen. Once again, Brad, I'll have to get you on as an advertiser. Just because you're a big supporter of the program, I'd love to be able to pump you up every single day. Anyway, all that having been said, this is some really the nerve of her. It's all I can say. Now, mind you, I do want to admit, unfortunately, I wish our president was a little bit more measured in his words. Because I think anytime you start talking about an entire group of people, based on what based upon what certain people in that group do, and you try and you kind of label the entire group, I think it takes away some credibility. But the issue here is that he does have some legitimate points here. He does have it's his representation is not based on nothing, right? The very fact that once again, the overwhelming majority of the people who were caught up in this fraud were Somalis. That's so many people in leadership within the Somali community have been caught up in this. The very fact that, evidence that has come to light so far basically shows that anytime anyone tried to raise a question about this, and this was from information coming from whistleblowers within state government, the programs were told, well, no, don't say anything. And because they were being threatened that if you say something, we're going to accuse you of being racist against Somalis. The politicians who knew that this was going on were basically told, if you say something or if you step up and you accuse the Somali community, you're going to lose our support, which means you're going to lose a number of elections. And while the Somali community in the United States is not huge, it is definitely concentrated there in Minnesota, in certain places within Minnesota, places that Democrats need their vote in order to get elected. The problem is that, first of all, Ilhan Omar is more committed to her home country of Somalia than she is to the United States. I think that in and of itself disqualifies her from serving in Congress, or if it doesn't, it should. I mean, if nothing else, there's got to be some way, as I see it, where it is a violation of her oath of office, because she's more interested in, once again, making sure that Somalia is taken care of than she is in making sure that the people of her district, the Americans within her district, are taken care of. Right? She seems more interested in making sure that people who are in the country illegally are taken care of than people who are in the country legally. People who, once again, who are citizens, who are veterans. She's a lot less interested in making sure that they're taken care of. So this lady, I'm sorry, but if nothing else, it was good to see that at least the question was asked. Now, mind you, like I said, the way they started off, it was like, yeah, this racist guy, Mr. Donald Trump, anything he says is probably false, but I've got to raise this question. So in other words, they qualify it by, yes, we're going to call Donald Trump an evil racist, but what about this? And just so you know, we're not going to do any real follow-up questions. We're not going to say, well, one of these people who received hundreds of thousands of dollars, they're donors to your campaign. They hosted your victory party. They're very closely tied in your community. What about I'm really hoping that someone's going to take a time to look at all of her political donations and see how much of that money came through. And then, by the way, anything that made it through to terrorists, anybody who finds anything, I'm sorry, those folks, if they are citizens, they need to be charged and they need to go to jail for supporting terrorism, whatever the federal crime is for supporting terrorism. And then when they're done with their jail time, their citizenship should be revoked and they should get booted out of the United States of America and sent back to Somalia. And that was one thing I have to say, I kind of agree with the president on. I'm like this. If you don't like it here and you came here from another country and you don't like it here, what I don't understand is, if you like Somalia so much, why aren't you living in Somalia? Why are you here? It makes no sense. I'll say that to an American citizen. If you hate it here so much, right? Now, let me take a step back. I get it because I live here in California, right? And California's my home. It was where I was born. It's where I've been raised. California today is not what California was. It's not the land of opportunity that it once was. I feel blessed in that, I have made it well. I do well. I mean, I ain't rich. I'm not wealthy. I'm not part of the top 1%. I'm not even top one of the top 5%. But I live very comfortably. I make a very good living. And I could probably make this living doing what I do anywhere in the country. I could probably live elsewhere in the country and save a lot more of my money. Have a lot less taken in taxes, have a lot less taken in cost of living, right? I could probably sell this house here in California and go and live in another state and use the equity from this house and buy it cash and be debt free. But see, this is my home. I love it here. I love my home. This is where my kids are. This is where my grandkids are. This is where most of my friends are. I don't want to run. And I feel like if I cut and run, what am I doing to the people who don't have the ability to cut and run? What am I doing to them? Now, I get it. At a certain point, everyone hits their ouch point. At a certain point, you got to make a decision that's best for you and best for your family. And sometimes that might mean leaving home. That happens sometimes. Sometimes you got to do that. I get it. California right now is breaking records for people who are realizing that and doing that, and they're leaving the state of California, right? But for these folks who want to come to the United States and complain, and that's the difference, is they were in Somalia, and now they're here. And if life was so good in Somalia, why aren't you in Somalia? Just wondering. If you are a citizen here, if you've been sworn in as a citizen, if you moved here, what is? I don't get it. I know you're likely living a much better lifestyle than anything you would have lived in Somalia. I know that you have access to more here than you ever would have when you were in Somalia. even if you're doing well, you're high tax. You're high tax probably because you're making a bunch of money that you could never have made in Somalia. But see, here, we try to focus on doing things legally. There's a way, and it's in some countries, and I understand in some societies, it's normal to try and take advantage of the government. Getting over on the government is how you get by. But that's not the way we do things here. That's not the standard. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but that's not the standard here in the United States. And when you are caught getting over on the government, right? When you're caught stealing basically from taxpayers, there should be a price to pay. There should be. Let's see if there is. And I still believe that I still believe Ilhan Omar really honestly and truly believes when she says, yeah, no, it's someone else's fault. In other words, if you weren't smart enough to not get got, then it's on you. That's their attitude. There are a lot of people who steal from people who feel that way. If you're too dumb, that's their attitude, not mine, their attitude. If you're too dumb to not get got, then you ought to get got. No, that's a little gangster right there. But it is the way that it is. It is what it is. I didn't write the rules. I didn't make the rules. I didn't write the rules. I'm just telling you how it is. Right? Right. Anyway, and that's why you have someone like Ilhan Omar who thinks she can blame the FBI for stuff that's going on, for some of the crap that's going on here. I don't get it. I don't think it's right, but anyway, that's her. All right, folks, that now brings us to our second story of the day. It has to do with Rosie O'Donnell and her TDS. That's right, TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome. It's funny, people don't, it's a Trump Derangement Syndrome is a thing. In fact, I need to write a piece about Trump Derangement Syndrome because I know it to be a thing, and I know those of you who are on the conservative side, I know you know it is a thing. But here's the thing that I'll say, though. We have Trump Derangement Syndrome on our side, too. It manifests differently, but it does exist. And I'll just say this. If you are a person who believes that Donald Trump can do no right, or you believe that Donald Trump can do no wrong, there's a very good chance that you are suffering from Trump Derangement Syndrome. Not saying, just saying. Maybe I'll explain it in the piece. If y'all want to see a piece, if y'all would like to see me write a piece like that, go ahead and note it in the comments. Say, hey, yeah, Craig, I'd like to see that. I'd like to hear about Trump Derangement Syndrome on the right and on the left, because I think that's a piece worth writing. But it's only going to be a piece worth writing if y'all find it worth reading. So let me know what y'all think. But anyway, so you might remember Rosie O'Donnell said that, well, if Trump got reelected, she was moving out of the country. And she was actually one of a handful of liberals who actually followed through on their commitment. Donald Trump got elected, and she decided to move. And for her, she decided to move to Ireland. Now, you would think that because Donald Trump is not her president anymore, because she's now in Ireland, she's not in the United States anymore. And by the way, they have rejected her request to become a permanent resident or a citizen there in Ireland. So she's eventually going to have to come back. But you would think her obsession, and there's no other real way to put it other than an obsession with Donald Trump, you would think she would have gotten over that by now. Well, she hasn't. And in a recent interview, we've come to find out just how much she has not gotten over it. This is a piece over at the Independent. Rosie O'Donnell promised to detach from social media over Donald Trump, but it only lasted hours. Rosie O'Donnell has opened up about her attempted social media cleanse that went wrong amid her ongoing feud with President Donald Trump. The comedian, 63, said she was urged to detach from firing off her anti-Trump social media posts around Thanksgiving. However, O'Donnell, who moved to Ireland 5 days before Trump was inaugurated in January, told the Washington Post that in a new interview that she gave up on the plan just hours later. She said her longtime friend told her, Roseanne, you've got to detach. You've got to disconnect. However, O'Donnell could not stay silent when she saw that Trump had recently scolded Bloomberg reporter uh, Catherine Lucy and told her to be quiet, piggy, when she pressed him about the Epstein files. After posting myriad criticisms of Trump and unflattering pictures of him, O'Donnell then made a plan to stay off social media for 3 days, which also ended early. Despite her toxic relationship with Trump and social media, O'Donnell said her move abroad has been the healthiest and best decision for herself and her youngest child, Clay. She said earlier this year she was feeling healthier and sleeping better since living in Dublin. Quote, it's not easy to move to another country, and we really felt as a family this was the safest and best thing for us to do, she said in March. I feel healthier. I'm sleeping better without the stress and anxiety over what was happening politically in the country. Now, mind you, this is a person who can't go but a few hours, can't go but a few hours without commenting on something Donald Trump. Now, I'll tell you, it's funny. I had a guy who I had posted something that basically was saying, basically what I was saying was, you know, I basically was saying was, look, anytime you on the left, anytime you use the term Nazi, or you say that someone is going to end democracy or that he's going to jail people, it's like that's bait to crazy people. Crazy people who are looking for a reason to attack somebody on the right. They glab on to stuff like that. And I thought that was a reasonable post. Well, this guy who claims to rarely go on my Facebook page decided to respond that I was a troll, right? Oh, Craig, you're such a troll. And all you do is you post about this stuff and you just want to get people angry or stuff like that. And I can't believe that you're trolling people and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, you know, my response to him was, well, I don't just post stuff like that, right? In fact, it's not even a big part of my feed. And to prove it to you here, I'll show y'all. This is my personal Facebook page. That's my family, my kids, and my grandkids. Uh, you come down here. This was a movie that I was in called Black Rabbit. Kind of trying to promote that. The fact that my Twitter account got stolen, encouraging people to re-sign up. Picture with my granddaughter. This was from 5 years ago. This was also her when she was born. She's 2 months old. Something about Christmas. Here's the this is once again Thanksgiving post. Let's see, keep going. Once again, this is my youngest granddaughter. Wait, let's keep going. So here was the post, right? That he was commenting on. Now, I want you to see, now you've seen the after, what I've posted after. Let's talk about the stuff before. So this is from an event to a Freedom Fest that I'm going to. Once again, this is a funny story. Let's just talk about, what's going on important in Seattle. Kind of funny. This is where I actually put up that piece. This is where I posted the thing about the movie. This is the local boy gone good. You guys might know Mr. Scadaboo. He's from Rio Linda High School where my son went to school. This is just talking about. I mean, now, the thing I'm wanting you to notice is this. Look, something from Family Feud. The thing I'm wanting you to know, this was an interview that I did on education. This is like, okay, the next close thing to a political post, right? But I want you to notice how few political posts there actually are here, right? And what I've learned from this is this, and this is, and it's funny because I told him this in a comment, and needless to say, he has not responded. I said, here's the thing. What happens is that he's complaining that the only thing he ever sees me post are things like political stuff like that. And I said, you need to understand how algorithms like Twitter and Facebook work. The stuff that shows up is the stuff that you respond to. So, in other words, the fact that I have all these other posts and you don't see them, it's because you don't respond to those posts. You don't take the time to look at those posts. You don't take the time to read those posts or comment on those posts or like or dislike those posts. The only ones you respond to are the ones that seem to get you all riled up. So, the fact that you only see those things that rile you up says more about you than it does about me. That's the key. Now, I realized this, and here's the reason why I realized it. I said, look, I'm not trying to be judgmental because I thought the same thing about somebody who I accused of having Trump derangement syndrome. I was like, dude, man, you have Trump derangement syndrome. That turns out they did, but they weren't as obsessed as I thought they were because when I actually clicked over to their profile, right, their actual page that shows everything that they post or everything that they're tagged in, there was a lot of anti-Trump stuff, but it didn't take over their Facebook page, right? It wasn't their sole profile. So I realized that, okay, before I overreact to something that I see that they've posted, right? If I want to react just to that, then I can react just to that. But if I want to accuse them of something like having Trump derangement syndrome or being obsessed with Donald Trump or this or that, then maybe I need to take a moment and look at their entire profile to get a better idea. Because here's the thing. The Twitter algorithms, the Facebook algorithms, the Instagram algorithms, they don't present a full picture of who your followers/friends are on social media. It doesn't. So take a moment and check them out. Take a moment before you accuse them of having Trump derangement syndrome, being so obsessed, yada, 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 yada. Take some time to go and look. Now, they may just be misinformed. They may be disinformed. They may just disagree with you, and that's okay. But always be careful, but once again, in this particular case, she admits to being obsessed. Trust me, I can go days without posting about anything. Now, part of that's because I get a chance to rant with you guys 5 days a week. That doesn't hurt. The fact that I get a chance to kind of run my mouth with you guys every day helps. It really does. Anyway, but not everybody has that outlet, so a lot of people utilize social media for it. Anyway, I realize I went way, way off on this particular topic, but suffice it to say, TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, is a thing. And yes, there are sufferers on the right and the left. And once again, if you'd like me to write a piece about it, right, go ahead and comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think I ought to write that piece. All right. So this is an interesting little ditty here over in this piece. This is a piece over from the New York Post, and it's talking about, so an organization decided that they were going to test the ACA grants, right? And what they did was they went and they created these fake accounts and they applied for ACA grants. And they found that 90% of their fake accounts were granted Obamacare subsidies with absolutely no documentation, right? Zero documentation. That's what's pointed out here. And once again, in this post by the this article presented by the New York Post, it says Affordable Care Act subsidies have been granted without the required documentation to 90% of fictitious applicants over the last 2 years, according to a damning government watchdog report released Wednesday. The Government Accountability Office's preliminary findings of ongoing and covert testing of Obamacare found that fraud risks in the federal ACA marketplace, specifically related to the healthcare program's advance premium tax credit, a subsidy Democrats shut down the government over last month in a failed effort to extend the tax credits for 3 more years. The federal marketplace marketplace approved coverage for nearly all of GAO's fictitious applicants in plan years 2024 and 2025, generally consistent with similar GAO testing in plan years 2014 through 2016, according to the government watchdog. In a plan year 2024, all 4 GAO fake applicants received coverage with lower monthly premiums, thanks to $2,350 per month in Obamacare subsidies granted to insurers, despite not submitting documentation to support Social Security numbers, citizenship, and reported income. The GAO upped the number of fake applicants to 20 in plan year 2025, and 18 still remain actively covered as of September 2025. The subsidies that the 18 fake enrollees were approved for totaled over $10,000 per month. Evidence of potential misuse of Social Security numbers, including dead people receiving coverage, was also discovered by the GAO. Now, I was reading another article, and they were talking about how the people who were engaged in this fraud, the people who eventually would plead guilty, here's what they said. They said not only did we keep going to the trough, but every time we went to the trough, or not only did we get caught with our hand in the cookie jar, but here was the deal. Every time we pulled stuff we pulled everything out of the cookie jar, they kept refilling the cookie jar. Meaning there were never any checks. In fact, one of the reasons why they wound up getting caught was when they realized we didn't even have to provide documentation. It's like all we had to do was apply, and they were getting approved. No checks, no balances. And this was a program administered by, in this particular case, by the state of Minnesota. And we also now know, because of information that's been released, when people who were within the program, when whistleblowers within the program tried to go to the state, tried to go to the governor's office, tried to go to the AG's office to talk about this, they were told to stand down. They were told you would be charged with racism or whatever if you kept up with the accusations. So they made this possible. You couldn't even though you knew, you're like, look, this account, there ain't no documentation here. What's going on? There was nothing you could do. There was absolutely nothing you could do. Nothing. Because they weren't interested. They were not interested in making sure that the taxpayers' money was protected. Absolutely zero interest. They were more interested not coming across as racist. They were more interested in making sure that they didn't lose the votes of the Somali community. Because the Somali community, if you came out against the Somali community, even if the people you were coming out against were doing wrong, the belief was, and once again, I don't want to impugn the integrity of individual Somalis, because or American Somalian citizens, because I believe that there are plenty of them who are like, no, I'm not okay with this. I would not be okay with this. I believe there's plenty of them. But there was enough feeling that the community as a whole would not support actual accountability. Enough so, such that Tim Walz administration refused to actually allow it to be investigated and prosecuted. And despite what he says, no, they were not. When people came to them, they tried to shut them down. When people came to Tim Walz, and the media wasn't doing any good either, because all of this stuff has been out there for a while. In particular, while he was running for president, CBS News didn't give a rip. Nobody said anything when Tim Walz was the vice presidential nominee for the Democratic Party. How does this not warrant some investigation? Well, because, we all know whose pocket they're in. All right, that now brings us to our final one. And let's talk about liars. course, it's hard to talk about political liars and not mention our good friend, Mr. Gavin Newsom, or as I like to call him, Gavin Mussolini, from the great state of California, who's got the nerve, by the way, to blame Donald Trump for abandoning LA fire survivors. That's him right here. This is from the California Globe. This is a piece written by Katie Grimes. I've known Katie for decades, almost 30 years. We blog together as members of the Western Alliance. She probably doesn't like me to say this, but I'll continue to say it. She blogged under the pseudonym Fetching Jen. Anyway, awesome woman over there. She's an editor over at the California Globe. It says here, if hypocrisy had a photo image, California Governor Gavin Newsom's face would grace the poster. As the Globe reported Thursday, Newsom has all but abandoned the Palisades fire victims, is now asking for $34 billion federal bailout. California Governor Gavin Newsom disparaged Donald Trump at the New York Times Deal Book Summit in New York City this week, while turning around and sending a letter to congressional leaders asking for $34 billion bailout for Los Angeles County Palisades fire. Yet the California governor needs federal funding to bail him out of a really big political problem. It is Governor Gavin Newsom who is bending the knee to President Trump. Newsom now claims he's, quote, taking his advocacy for LA fire recovery to Washington to again call on Trump administration to provide a proposal to Congress to immediately assist LA fire survivors in rebuilding their communities. Newsom has made President Trump the central focus of his presidential campaign, disparaging and slandering the president at every turn. But the governor also wants the federal government to pay for the Palisades fire victims 11 months after the fires. Newsom admits he hasn't done anything in 11 months to get federal aid and has all but abandoned the Palisades fire victims through inaction, causing the re-victimization of fire victims. Friday, Gavin Newsom stormed the U.S. Capitol in search of support for federal funding, claiming it is, quote, not only for the people who have been torn asunder. Quote, Gavin Newsom spent the day at Capitol Hill meeting with key congressional leaders in both parties as part of his continued push to secure long-delayed federal wildfire recovery funding from the White House for Los Angeles families nearly 1 year after the catastrophic Palisades and Eaton fires. Okay, but the long-delayed federal wildfire recovery fund won't take place of local California help the governor has denied victims of Palisades and Eaton fires. Oh, while Newsom attacked the president once again, claiming the Trump administration turned their backs on survivors by refusing to even meet with us. President Trump's promise to take care of survivors was clearly a lie. He isn't here for the people of Los Angeles, just like he wasn't here for everyday Americans. That's just disrespectful. It's disgraceful. Actually, replace President Trump with Gavin Newsom. Here, I'll do it for you. Well, I'm not gonna bother with all that. Anyway, the point is that he's basically trying to say that this is all on President Trump. Now, mind you, the reason why a lot of these folks didn't have coverage has to do with policies passed by the Democratic Party here in California that restricted the ability of insurance companies to be able to cover their losses. In other words, insurance companies weren't able to cover their losses in case there was a fire. Everyone knew that this was a possibility. It was unlikely possibility, but it was a possibility. And so many insurance companies canceled a bunch of policies in California and in Los Angeles in areas that were of high fire risk, including areas that would have been covered by these fires or the areas that were destroyed by these fires. So a bunch of people didn't have fire insurance. And those are policies of the Democratic Party. Those are policies of the Democrat Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara. The one before him, which was Dave Jones. They're the ones who've absolutely positively refused to have policies that make it so that, because here's the deal, folks. Insurance companies, I hate to say it's like a gamble, right? It's always a gamble. What they do is they say, okay, you're going to pay us a certain amount of money. We're going to collect that amount of money. We're going to allow it. It's going to help us to create a fund so that if there is a fire or if there's a problem and your home burns down, we can replace it. At the very minimum, you're measuring risk, right? You've got people who are all the point going through measuring risk to determine how much money you need. Now, if you need more money, the only way in which you get more money is by raising premiums, in particular in the high-risk areas. The state of California wouldn't allow them to do it. Not only would the state of California not allow them to increase their rates, or to do that, because it's going to be the other thing was, well, what happens if it costs more? In other words, they were looking at they couldn't base their rates on the replacement cost, on what it actually is going to cost. They had to look at, well, what does it cost historically? Well, we just experienced historic inflation, right? The worst inflation in 40 years. Building materials cost more. They especially cost more in California. So yeah, it was a lot more expensive. It was going to go up a lot more. They would not allow them to cover their costs. Well, and like any good insurance company, he did his job. They did their jobs, and they're like, okay, well, we're not going to cover something that is by the numbers going to be a huge risk for us. Just not going to do it. And so they canceled the policies, right? Once the policies became too high risk, sorry, too bad, so sad. Don't know what to tell you. And they canceled them. And I get why they did. Anyway, this is all on Democrats here in the state of California. And by the way, one of the other reasons it's so expensive is because, well, there's a lot of environmental policies and programs and coastal commissions and all this stuff that's going to require to be done in the areas that burn down. It's just going to make it cost prohibitive. If they can even get the approvals to do it. Once again, every single one of those policies, every single one of those commissions, every single one of them, all Democrat run, all Democrat led, all Democrat instituted. But for some reason, orange man bad, therefore all things bad. That's how they roll. All right, folks, well, this now brings us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholsters.com, use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, and get your hog holster today. All right, all three of our parting shots today are going to be brought to you by the Babylon Bee, fake news that you can trust. Our first one, special needs community demands people stop comparing them to Tim Walz. I understand why. First of all, I will let you folks know, this has a lot to do with, President Trump calling him retarded or calling him a retard. I don't remember if he called him retarded or if he said he was a retard. But there's a fundamental misunderstanding. When you call someone retarded or you refer to someone as a retard, you are not referring to someone who is developmentally disabled. You're not talking about someone who's special needs. You're talking about someone who is so stupid that they do not know that they are stupid. That is a retard. And that is Tim Walz. Next one here. Nigerian prince scammed by Somali immigrant. The only way you do not get this joke is if you've never gotten the whole, a Nigerian prince wants to invest or has money stuck in an account, and if you just send him some money, he'll kick you back some of his inheritance. Anyway. And then finally, junior cartel member excited to already be getting to drive boat. Uh-oh. I don't think that's going to go as well as he thinks it is going to go. Most definitely not. Anyway, that's fun stuff. All right, folks, so that brings us to the end of our program. But before we go, we're going to give one more quick shout out to our sponsors. We got Hitman Industries, rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at hitmanindustries.net. The California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party. Check them out at cragop.org. The best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market at hogholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com, helping Americans wear guns. And then you've got the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun. And that would be uscombatgear.com. All right, folks, that's going to be it for today's program. We will be back tomorrow on Taco Tuesday. Till then, y'all have fun, stay safe, and we will see you mañana.